Welcome to OMARANGER004, where we talk comics, movies, TV shows and games. But before we start, please join me on Patreon by OMARANGER004. Your small donation helps run the channel. With that out of the way, let's begin. Alexander Joseph. Lex Luthor is a fictional supervillain appearing in American comic books published by DC Comics. The character was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Lex Luthor originally appeared in Action Comics number 23, cover dated April 1940. He has since endured as the arch-nemesis of Superman. 2. Lex Luthor was originally depicted as a narcissistic and egotistical mad scientist from the 1960s to the early 1980s. Since the late 1980s, he has more often been portrayed as the power-mad CEO of LexCorp. He wishes to rid the world of Superman, ostensibly because he views Superman as a threat to humanity, but in reality envies Superman's popularity and influence. 3. Given his high profile as a supervillain, however, he has often come into conflict with Batman and other superheroes in the DC universe. 4. Lex Luthor is physically an ordinary human and has no natural superpowers, but has above-average intelligence, a genius for inventions and a high command of science and technology. He occasionally wears his Warsuit, a suit of mechanized armor that gives him enhanced strength, flight, advanced weaponry, and other capabilities. While Lex is primarily depicted as a supervillain allied with other villains in the likes of Metallo, Parasite and Bizarro, and frequently leading DC supervillain teams such as the Legion of Doom, he has also been portrayed as an antihero who will ally himself with Superman and other heroes when situation calls for it. 5. The character was ranked 4th on IGN's list of the top 100 comic book villains of all time, 6, and is the 8th greatest villain by Wizard on its 100 greatest villains of all time list. 7. Luthor is one of a few genre-crossing villains whose adventures take place in a world in which the ordinary laws of nature are slightly suspended. 5. Scott James Wells, Sherman Howard, John Shea, Michael Rosenbaum and John Cryer have portrayed the character in television series, while Lyle Talbot, Gene Hackman, Kevin Spacey, and Jesse Eisenberg have portrayed the character in films. Several actors have provided Luthor's voice in animated adaptations, including Clancy Brown, Mark Rolston, James Marsters and Giancarlo Esposito. Whether he is a mad scientist, corrupt businessman, or both, Luthor's ego is a defining trait in all his incarnations. He believes he is entitled to both popularity and power. While each incarnation initially wants the adoration of others and control over either Smallville or Metropolis, the goal eventually rises to control over Earth and possibly universal domination. Luthor's other defining trait is his obsession to destroy Superman and humiliate the alien hero, either by displaying his own superiority by achieving victory without the benefit of superpowers or to prove the Man of Steel is motivated by selfish desire rather than altruism. Many times, Luthor has claimed he could create a better way of life for the entire human race if not for Superman's interference with his work. He has even argued that the Man of Tomorrow's presence not only invites danger, it actually encourages human society not to strive for greatness because a powerful alien is around to protect them and solve problems. During the Blackest Night crossover, Wonder Woman restrains Luthor with her magic lasso, and under its spell of truth he confesses he secretly wants to be Superman, revealing that beneath all his blustering, Luthor covets Superman's powers for himself. 30. When Superman was out of sight for a year, 31. Luthor used the time to create the Everyman project, intending to create new superheroes to replace the Kryptonian, then later attacks Metropolis with a long-buried Kryptonian warship. Returning to action, Superman points out that Luthor had a year to prove his old argument that he could help others and improve Earth if Superman didn't interfere with his life. But instead of curing disease or making technological breakthroughs, all he did was focus on increasing his power and finding a big destructive machine so he could break things. 32. In the storyline, The Black Ring, Luthor is endowed with cosmic powers that could enable him to bring peace and bliss to the entire universe and therefore achieve his dream of being more respected than Superman, but he ultimately chooses to renounce his new powers when he realizes that his greatest enemy would never suffer again if he used them. 33. At times, Lex has been shown evidence that Clark Kent is Superman, and almost always he denies this possibility, unable to imagine a man of such power spending half his time pretending to be average, since in his mind, such a possibility would be too humiliating to bear. In stories appearing in JLA and 52 by Grant Morrison, Luthor cannot bring himself to believe Superman is truly altruistic and deeply cares about a planet that is not his native world, concluding the hero's good deeds are often actually passive-aggressive ways of flaunting his power and popularity to Lex. When the hero joins forces with others to form a new, powerful version of the Justice League of America, Lex decides this is Superman's direct challenge to his own power, and establishes an Justice League, composed of various supervillains to rival them. 34. Silver Age. While the Golden Age Luthor, later named Alexei Luthor, is simply an amoral and brilliant man driven by a simple desire for power, the Silver Age incarnation was given a more developed personality and backstory. Teenage Lex Luthor is an aspiring scientist who resides in Smallville and greatly admires its local hero Superboy. After Lex saves him from kryptonite, the Boy of Steel builds him a private laboratory in gratitude. After thousands of experiments, the young scientist creates an artificial life form of primitive protoplasm. Overjoyed, he accidentally causes a chemical fire in the lab. Superboy puts out the fire, inadvertently spilling other chemicals, destroying the artificial life form and the accumulated research notes that led to its creation. The chemical fumes also cause Lex's hair to completely fall out. Enraged, he has lost years of research but unwilling to accept responsibility for the fire, Luthor concludes Superboy intentionally sabotaged his work, jealous of the young scientist's achievements, and swears revenge. 35. Luthor creates grandiose engineering projects to prove his superiority over the superhero, but each one fails and causes problems that Superboy then solves. Luthor then makes his first attempt to murder the last son of Krypton and fails. Instead of bringing him to the authorities, Superboy declares they are even now and expresses hope Lex will straighten out and use his intelligence to help humanity rather than try to prove his superiority or waste time seeking power and vengeance. 36. Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane number 23, 1961, reveals the Silver Age Lex Luthor parents are Jules and Arlene and that he has a younger sister Lena. When Lex becomes a criminal, the family moves away from Smallville and changes its name to Thorl, an anagram, to start a new life free of him. Lena Thorl is a toddler at the time and grows up not remembering her real last name, while her parents say her older brother died in a mountain climbing accident. Lex later watches over the adult Lena, making sure she does not discover her connection to one of Earth's greatest villains. As an adult, Lex Luthor's driving ambitions are to kill Superman and rule Earth, a stepping stone to dominating the universe, believing a man of his intellect deserves such power. 37. On several occasions he joins forces with Superman's enemy Brainiac, though the two often betray each other as well. Lex is repeatedly imprisoned, but his genius allows him to routinely escape. He also makes it a point to be out of prison on the birthday of Albert Einstein, regarding it as a holiday. 25. A famous non-canonical, imaginary story, from 1961 entitled, The Death of Superman, has Luthor finally succeed in killing Superman after pretending to reform and befriend him. 38-39. On a distant arid planet orbiting a red star, Luthor challenges Superman to a fight since Kryptonians lose power when exposed to red sun radiation. Befriending the planet's inhabitants, Luthor aids them in rediscovering lost technology that restores the water supply and helps the society rebuild. As a result, Luthor becomes a hero in the eyes of the planet, whereas his enemy Superman is detested as a villain. The people rename the planet Lexer and it becomes a regular home base and retreat for Luthor in between his efforts to fight Superman and take over Earth. 40. He later meets a local woman named Ardora, first called Tharla, but renamed Ardora, in later stories as well as the reprint of her first appearance. The two eventually fall in love and marry. 41. Bronze Age deciding to retire permanently, Luthor returns to Lexer and learns he has fathered a son by Ardora, Lex Luthor Jr. He spends the next several weeks with his new family before discovering Lexer suffers from the same planetary instability that destroyed Krypton. While creating a Neutrarid tower to stabilize the planetary core, Luthor's pathological hatred for Superman resurfaces and he reflects on feeling unsatisfied in life without their conflict. The villain then unearths an ancient underground laboratory of great technology, a relic from Lexer's lost age. After one of Luthor's still active satellites threatens the people of Earth, he concludes Superman will soon come to Lexer to take him back to Earth authorities. With the underground lab's resources, he spends weeks creating a highly destructive, flight-capable, Warsuit, later simply called a Warsuit, to finally match the Kryptonian in physical combat and counter his powers. To test the suit, Luthor performs several acts of destruction on Lexer, feigning ignorance when he hears about the mystery marauder, and telling Ardora he has no knowledge of the armored man. When Superman arrives, Luthor dons his warsuit and attacks, now obsessed with the need to best the hero in combat and prove his superiority. The people of Lexer are shocked to realize he is the mystery marauder and does not care about the harm he has caused them. During the battle, Luthor releases an energy salvo that accidentally overloads the Neutrarid, resulting in the complete destruction of the planet Lexer and all its inhabitants, including Ardora and Lex Jr. Similar to how he reacted after the destruction of his lab in Smallville, Lex is unable to process his grief and accept his responsibility for Lexer's destruction. He psychologically blocks part of his own memory to convince himself Superman is at fault, renewing his need for vengeance. In his subsequent stories, he regularly uses the Lexorian Warsuit. 42. The Warsuit was designed by George Perez, 43, as part of the Superpowers toyline in the early 1980s before being introduced into the comics in 1983. 44. The suit vanished in 1986 after Crisis on Infinite Earths rebooted DC Comics continuity, but was reintroduced in 2004. Now said to be built with a combination of Earth and alien technology, including tech from the other dimensional world Apocalypse, and armed with different forms of kryptonite in the gauntlet. 45. Lex Luthor of Earth 1 team up with Alexei Luthor of Earth 2. It is shown that Alexei is arguably colder and more villainous, perfectly willing to destroy all of Earth in order to prove his superiority, whereas Lex hesitates to do so because he had no desire to rule a lifeless world and doesn't want his sister to die. They even extend their alliance to Ultraman when Earth 3's Lex Luthor is a good guy. All three villains were defeated by Superman of Earth 1, Superman of Earth 2, and Lex Luthor of Earth 3. 15. During the 12-issue limited series Crisis on Infinite Earths, Luthor allies himself with fellow Superman foe Brainiac to recruit an army of supervillains spanning the DC multiverse. Lex Luthor is present and complains this army does not need two Luthors. Brainiac kills Lex in response. At the conclusion of the series, reality is altered so that each of the different universes converge into one. Luthor is subsequently returned to prison with all his memories of the Crisis forgotten. This incarnation of Lex Luthor met his end in the non-canonical two-part story, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, that closed out the pre-Crisis Superman continuity of the Silver and Bronze Age. Luthor finds Brainiac's robotic head, hoping to revive the villain for a new team-up. Instead, Brainiac takes control of Luthor's body, forcing him to be a host as he attempts to destroy Superman. Luthor later begs a superpowered Lana Lang to kill him, who does so. Brainiac retains control of the body for a short period of time before rigor mortis sets in, then abandons it, running out of power shortly afterward. Post-Crisis is part of the continuity changes which followed the Man of Steel and Superman. Secret origin: Alexander. Lex. Joseph Luthor is corrupt businessman profiting from many hidden criminal operations. This Luthor grew up a poor child alongside Perry White, later causing his parents' death via a car accident so he can inherit their life insurance and create a better life for himself, creating LexCorp. He marries and divorces several times and desires a romance with Lois Lane. When Superman appears, Luthor takes advantage of a terrorist attack to see the hero in action and then attempts to make him an employee. But the Man of Steel, acting as a special deputy of Metropolis, arrests him for endangering people by not warning authorities of the impending terrorist attack. Humiliated, Luthor swears revenge, repeatedly letting Superman know about his criminal schemes but never leaving him enough evidence to bring the man to justice again. Luthor becomes obsessed with Superman and gathers all information on him and his associates, leading a computer analysis to conclude Clark Kent and Superman are the same person. Unable to believe someone as powerful as Superman regularly hide that power and pretend to be average, as that is something he would never do himself, Luthor dismisses the computer's findings and concludes both the machine and its programmer are at fault. 46. As a nod to the previous continuity, Luthor has his lab create high-tech armor that resembles the Lexorian Warsuit. Rather than act directly, he has an employee don the armor and attack Superman for him. The man is defeated and cannot testify against Luthor because the armor's neural control unit destroys his mind. Along with this, Luthor participates in the cover of Supergirl and Team Luthor #1, April 1993, art by Kerry Gammill. When Superman fights the cyborg Metallo, Luthor intervenes. In Superman, Volume 2, Number 2, discovering Metallo is powered by a heart of kryptonite that can hurt and potentially kill Superman, Luthor steals it and creates a kryptonite ring for himself. He wears the radioactive ore around his finger as a symbol that he is untouchable, causing the Man of Tomorrow pain and weakness whenever he approaches. Not realizing humans can be affected by severe or long-term meteoric radiation exposure, Luthor eventually suffers from kryptonite poisoning. 47. Having his right hand amputated to prevent the cancer's spread, 48. Later on said kryptonite ring, which he kept in cold storage prior to surgery, would be stolen not long afterwards. 49. Eventually coming into the possession of Superman, who in turn entrusts it to Batman, tasking the Dark Knight to use it if the Man of Steel ever becomes corrupt or falls under the control of another. 50-51. But removing the tainted limb was a mere half measure, as his affliction had already metastasized, rendering Lex's condition terminal. 52, 53, 54. Luthor fakes his death in a plane crash in the Andes and secretly has his brain transferred to a cloned body, one younger, taller, with full hair, and more physically fit. With aid from trusted assistants, the now physically 21-year-old Luthor presents himself to the world as his own hitherto unknown, illegitimate son and heir from Australia, Lex Luthor II, who only wishes to do good and can't be judged by the actions of his father. 55. He quickly manipulates and recruits the new Supergirl, a protoplasmic being, who falls in love with him due to his resemblance to her lost love and creator, the Luthor of a parallel Earth. 56. When Superman is seemingly killed by the living weapon Doomsday, the genetic research facility Project Cadmus creates a seeming clone of the hero called Superboy, Con-El. As Earth's science cannot perfectly replicate Kryptonian DNA, Superboy is created by genetic manipulation, essentially giving him 50% Superman's DNA and 50% DNA of a human being, revealed years later to be Luthor himself. Luthor's clone body eventually begins to deteriorate, causing him to lose his hair and age at an accelerated rate, a side effect of a disease affecting all clones. Lois Lane discovers proof of Luthor's clone harvesting and false identity and exposes him with help from Superman. 57. Desperate to evade arrest, Luthor activates technology left on Earth by Brainiac, destroying large sections of Metropolis in the process. In the end, Luthor becomes a prisoner in his own body, unable to move or even blink, internally swearing vengeance on Superman. During the crossover Underworld Unleashed, the Demon Lord Naren offers Luthor full health and vitality in exchange for services in his soul. Not believing in the existence of souls, Lex agrees and is restored, regaining the physical fitness of his Lex 2 body but again lacking head and facial hair, and is physically approximately in his true age. 58. His soul is later restored after Naren is defeated by Captain Marvel and the Trickster. 59. Returning to Metropolis, Luthor submits to a trial. He claims all his crimes were committed by a violent clone created by renegade scientists from Cadmus Labs who secretly held the true Luthor hostage. Luthor is acquitted of all charges. 60. He later arranges to reacquire his old kryptonite ring. When Superman and others form a new, powerful version of the Justice League of America, Lex decides this is Superman's direct challenge to his own power, so he creates a new Injustice gang in response. Along with his new teammates, Lex acquires a powerful artifact known as the Warlogog, which can warp space and time. The Injustice gang kills several people while attacking the League, then lures the heroes into a trap, but then is defeated. The Joker gains control of the Warlogog, but is then telepathically attacked, becoming temporarily sane and remorseful. Before the killer's mind reverts, Luthor has Joker use the Warlogog to revise history so that those killed no longer died. With the deaths removed and little physical evidence linking him to any wrongdoing, Luthor is free to go. While Batman concludes Luthor simply used Joker to avoid murder charges, Superman believes it is a sign Luthor does not truly desire the deaths of innocents and still has the potential to be a good man. 34. Luthor marries Contessa Erica Alexandra del Portenza, a near-immortal and formidable woman with her own agenda. After the birth of their daughter Lena, Luthor attempts to raise the girl without her interference. After several clashes, Luthor has the Contessa seemingly killed by a missile barrage. Later on, the time-traveling villain Brainiac 13 infuses Metropolis with technology from the future while his ancestor Brainiac, in need of a new physical vessel, mentally inhabits young Lena's body. Brainiac 13 offers Luthor control over of the technology if he turns over Brainiac and Luthor hands over his daughter. He later tells Superman that he has a kingdom now as a result of his deal, adding, As for my princess, I can always make another. President of the United States deciding to turn to politics, Luthor becomes President of the United States, winning the election on a platform of promoting technological progress. His first action as president is to take a proposed moratorium on fossil-based fuels to the U.S. Congress. On the night of the election, Batman threatens that Luthor can keep the kryptonite ring or the White House but not both. Later on, Superman, Batman and Lois Lane seemingly try to steal the ring only to be thwarted. In actuality, they manipulated Luthor into retrieving a fake while Batman keeps the actual ring. Superman, upon learning that Lex Luthor was about to be elected president, flew off in a fit of rage and split one of Saturn's small moons in half with one fly-through. 61. Before he takes office in the White House, Luthor cuts ties with his own company LexCorp, turning over leadership to Talia Head, pronounced Heed, daughter of international terrorist cult leader Ra's al Ghul, one of Batman's greatest enemies. Luthor's popularity is assisted by the extreme unpopularity of the previous administration's mishandling of the Gotham City earthquake crisis, as depicted in the No Man's Land storyline in the Batman titles, and his own seemingly heroic efforts to rebuild Gotham before it rejoins the United States. Batman learns Luthor attempted to take control of Gotham by forging deeds for its lands in his own name. This results in Bruce Wayne severing all commercial ties between the U.S. government and his company, Wayne Enterprises. In response to Wayne Enterprises severing ties with his government, Luthor arranges the murder of Wayne's lover, Vesper Fairchild, and frames Wayne for the murder, as seen in Bruce Wayne Fugitive, the plan being more successful than Luthor anticipated when his chosen assassin of David Kane realized Wayne's identity as Batman and set up a complex frame. Soon after, Luthor discovers evidence that leads him to conclude Clark Kent is Superman. The 2001 Our Worlds at War saga begins, in which Topeka, Kansas is destroyed in an attack by the alien Imperiex. Luthor is warned of the impending attack beforehand but alerts no one so Earth can enter a great war and he can prove his leadership to the world. Luthor coordinates the U.S. Army, Earth's superheroes, and a number of untrustworthy alien forces to battle the main villain of the story arc. Although Lex Luthor is able to devise a plan to destroy Imperiex's body, the plan is subsequently hijacked by Brainiac 13, requiring Superman to propose a new plan where Darkseid and Luthor coordinate their efforts to defeat Imperiex by sending him back in time. Following the battle, Superman retrieves Lena and returns her to Lex, advising Luthor to stop trying to be a god and just be a man. Soon afterward, Superman confronts the telepathic Manchester Black. Realizing Superman is a true hero and therefore true heroism is possible, Black decides to make up for his actions against the Man of Steel and Lois Lane by removing Lex Luthor's knowledge that the Man of Steel is Clark Kent. Revised backstory and removal from office following the publication of Superman Birthright in 2003-2004. Luthor's history is altered, and the new canon is quickly referenced in both Superman comics and the series Superman, Batman that begins in 2004. In the new history, Luthor is only a few years older than Clark Kent and his family moves to Smallville when he is a teenager. Possibly abused by his father Lionel, and alienated from others by his intelligence and his ignorance of certain social cues and behaviors, he does not understand why gifts are given on birthdays without a promise of payment of some kind. Lex only finds friendship with Clark, impressed by the young man's knowledge though also finding him naive. Luthor discovers kryptonite meteors in Smallville and uses the radioactive mineral as a power source for his experiments. When Clark sees the machine and feels ill from proximity to kryptonite, Luthor mistakes his reaction to mean the young man doesn't believe in the experiment, that he also thinks Lex is lying or crazy, as others do. The machine then explodes and Luthor survives but loses his hair as a result of radiation. Years later, his scientific research, largely based on his ideas about alien life, results in a small fortune that he uses to create LexCorp. When Superman appears in Metropolis, Lex is angered the man won't bow to his control and takes it very personally that a powerful alien, the kind of companion Luthor had often hoped for and believed would see him as a peer, instead looks on him with disapproval and moral judgment. This, along with Superman interfering with his criminal agenda and openly disrespecting Luthor in front of the media, motivates Lex to humiliate and destroy the alien hero. The initial story arc of the Superman-Batman ongoing series depicts the fall of Luthor's reign as U.S. President before he finishes his first term of office. In The World's Finest, more commonly referred to as Public Enemies, a kryptonite asteroid threatens Earth with its incoming impact and intense radiation. Luthor has been secretly injecting himself with a new version of the super steroid, Venom, a chemical associated with the Batman villain Bane, mixed with liquefied synthetic kryptonite of his own design. While increasing his physical strength and speed, it starts making him irrational and more prone to aggression. Seeing an opportunity with the appearance of the asteroid, Luthor decides to finally end Superman and tells the media that he has evidence the Man of Steel himself is drawing the deadly radioactive rock towards Earth. He offers a $1 billion reward for the last son of Krypton's capture. As these efforts fail and the meteorite is destroyed, an enraged Luthor decides to fight Superman directly, injecting himself with more of the synthetic kryptonite-laced venom and donning a high-tech warsuit. Maddened by the venom, Luthor admits during the battle that he has no real proof Superman is the cause of the deadly asteroid heading to Earth and reveals he traded the creature Doomsday, a living weapon of mass destruction, to Darkseid in return for weapons during the R-World's at War Crisis and Apocalyptian technology to create a new Warsuit, a deal that was done illegally and would be considered immoral by many. After Superman damages his Warsuit, Luthor retreats to LexCorp HQ only to discover that Talia Head has sold the entire company to the Wayne Foundation. Without resources and realize his confession to crime and conspiracy with a hostile power was recorded and broadcast, Luthor flees, now a wanted fugitive. Vice President Pete Ross briefly assumes his place as president. While on the run, Luthor takes a renewed interest in his son, Superboy, hoping to corrupt the young Con-El into being his soldier. In 2009, the story of Luthor's rise and fall as U.S. President was adapted as a direct-to-video animated film entitled Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. 62 Infinite Crisis Alexander Luthor Jr., the son of Earth-3's version of Luthor, returns to the DC Universe along with other survivors from Crisis on Infinite Earths as part of a scheme to replace it with a perfect Earth. He masquerades as the mainstream Lex Luthor and creates a new secret society of supervillains. In response, the real Luthor takes on the identity of Mockingbird and forms the third incarnation of the Secret Six to counter the society. The two have a confrontation during the main Infinite Crisis story and the mainstream Lex Luthor helps Earth's heroes locate young Alexander Jr. After Infinite Crisis ends, Luthor oversees Alexander's execution at the hands of the Joker in Crime Alley. 52 In the 2006-2007 series 52, Lex takes advantage of the presence of Alexander Jr.'s body. He convinces the public that it was not him who committed crimes and fled the White House but rather this man, a Luthor from a parallel Earth who masqueraded as him. 63. While some in the public don't believe this, it is enough to provide reasonable doubt and clear Lex of all charges again. With Superman now missing, due to losing his powers at the end of Infinite Crisis, Luthor pursues a new agenda. He creates the Luthoran Church and becomes spokesman for the Everyman Project, which offers superpowers to ordinary citizens through artificial metagene treatment. With several Everyman volunteers, including Natasha Irons, niece of John Henry Irons, Luthor forms his own team of superheroes, the New Infinity Inc. When the team battles the villain Blockbuster, whom Luthor empowered as well, Lex demonstrates he can shut off the powers of any of his Everyman agents. This results in the death of his speedster, Trajectory. 64. At the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, Luthor sets in motion a calculated plot to discredit Supernova, a new hero defending Metropolis in Superman's absence. Luthor triggers a mass shutdown of the powers of everyone who has undertaken the Everyman program, except for the members of Infinity Inc., causing widespread death, injury, and millions of dollars worth of damage. Luthor's plot ultimately fails when Supernova is able to minimize the disaster with a spectacular rescue. 65. While investigating Luthor, Natasha Irons discovers he has experimented on himself with artificial metagene treatment. 66. After developing nearly all of Superman's powers himself, Luthor considers conquering Earth and renaming it Lexer. However, Natasha triggers an electromagnetic pulse which shuts down the synthetic metagene and her uncle Steel to knocks Lex out. 67. Publicly disgraced, Lex faces indictment for over 120 criminal counts relating to what is now called the New Year's Eve massacre, ranging from malfeasance to first-degree murder. The full nature of his crimes are brought to public attention through various articles written by Clark Kent. 1 year later and countdown 1 year after the events of Infinite Crisis, weeks after the New Year's Eve massacre, Luthor is cleared of all criminal charges in the 1 year later storyline. Despite this, his public image is ruined and, thanks to the machinations of the villain Dr. Sivana, he has lost most of his wealth and had no control over the newly reformed LexCorp, now being run by Lana Lang. He blames Clark Kent for swaying public opinion and pledges vengeance on Metropolis after an angry mob jeers him. Amassing large quantities of kryptonite and kidnapping the super-villains Metallo and the Kryptonite Man, Lex uses them to power a Kryptonian warship controlled through a sunstone crystal. 68. Having recently regained his powers, Superman destroys the kryptonite-powered ship and confronts Lex with the fact that, despite his claims that Superman is what prevents him from helping humanity, the only thing he accomplished during the Man of Steel's absence was to cause pain and acquire a machine that could cause more destruction. Enraged, Lex manages to escape custody yet again. 69. Lex Luthor continues his open campaigns against Superman and Earth's heroes, working with Bizarro, a new revenge squad, and the Kryptonian General Zod. Alongside Joker and Cheetah 3, Luthor, once again wearing his Warsuit, organizes a new Injustice League to help destroy the reformed Justice League. During this period, he creates the third Shaggy Man and the third Blockbuster. Luthor plays a large role in the countdown to Final Crisis tie-in series Salvation Run. Exiled to a distant planet along with many of Earth's villains, Lex quickly assumes command and convinces many to follow him as he finds a way home. He is opposed by those who join forces with Joker and Gorilla Grodd. Eventually, the villains are attacked by Darkseid's shock troopers, the Parademons. Luthor manages to get the villains off the planet with a makeshift teleporter, using the villains Neutron, Heatmonger, Plasmus, Warp, and Thunder and Lightning as unwilling power sources. When called a monster by Thunder, Luthor claims the ones who exiled them are the real monsters and he is the hero. He sets the teleporter to self-destruct after he uses it, killing the Parademons as well as his living batteries. Final Crisis. In the Final Crisis crossover, Luthor joins the inner circle of Libra's secret society of supervillains. After learning Libra is a prophet of Darkseid, Lex Luthor opposes him, unwilling to be a mindless slave while Earth is largely destroyed. Working with Dr. Sivana, Luthor seemingly destroys Libra and overrides the will-destroying anti-life equation being broadcast into the helmets of the Justifiers, humans forced to obey Darkseid. 70. Luthor subsequently assists Superman in leading the assault against Darkseid's forces, noting that Superman can consider this a legendary first team-up between good and bad. Luthor joins those assisting Superman and his remaining allies in constructing a new wish-granting miracle machine, which is later used to reset the universe without Darkseid's presence. 71. New Krypton Luthor is finally found guilty for his crimes. Rather than spend life in prison, he is recruited by General Sam Lane to serve out his sentence by working for the secretive Project 7734. Accessing the knowledge stored within the captured Brainiac. 72. Luthor successfully accesses Brainiac's brain, using it to activate the villain's ship and robotic drones. Luthor is then tasked with studying the genetic potential of the seemingly dead body of Doomsday. 73. Luthor later manages to use Brainiac's ship to kill the soldiers assigned to watch him. Brainiac frees himself from Luthor's control and the two make their escape. 74. Forming an alliance, Brainiac promises Luthor can have Earth when he is done with it. Lex returns to Smallville, where it is revealed his sister Lena is alive, physically and mentally handicapped, and living with her daughter Lori. In an effort to prove his abilities to Superboy, Lex manages to counter Lena's disabilities, allowing her to walk and regain greater mental awareness, then quickly reverses the process, leaving her completely catatonic. Luthor then informs Superboy that so long as Superman is alive, he will never reveal how he helped Lena. Seeing Superboy now as a failed experiment due to having 50% wrong alien DNA, Luthor and Brainiac create another binary clone with their own genetics. 75. Last Stand of New Krypton and War of the Supermen as part of his participation in Project 7734. Luthor sends a robot double of himself with Brainiac on a mission to attack New Krypton. While there, the Luthor robot tampers with the body chemistry of the previously captured villain Reactron. 76. Reactron then kills himself, initiating a chain reaction which destroys New Krypton and all but a handful of its 100,000 Kryptonian inhabitants. Supergirl's mother Alora is among the casualties. 77. Since Earth is at war with New Krypton at the time, Luthor is praised for this action and receives a presidential pardon for all his past crimes. 78. Blackest Night. During the Blackest Night storyline, when the public learned that everyone who has died or rising as undead Black Lanterns, Luthor isolates himself in his safe house in fear that all the people he has murdered over the years will reanimate and seek revenge. 79. Several victims, including his deceased father, arrive but he escapes after receiving a power ring fueled by the orange light of avarice, becoming an Orange Lantern deputy. Luthor arrives at Coast City and joins the battle against the Black Lantern Corps, fighting Black Lantern versions of Superman and Superboy. 80. Luthor is quickly overwhelmed by his greed and sets out to steal the rings of his fellow inducted Lanterns, taking Scarecrow's yellow fear-powered ring before being held back. Wonder Woman restrains Luthor with her magic lasso, and under its spell of truth he confesses he secretly wants to be Superman. 30. When Necron is defeated, Larfleeze the Orange Lantern takes Luthor's ring, as there can only be one avarice-powered ring. 81. Still craving the power of the orange light, Luthor recovers and operates on the remains of Black Lanterns. He is visited by Larfleeze, who demands to know what is important to the people of Earth. Luthor responds with power, which Larfleeze already possesses, and land, which intrigues the alien. 82. Superman. Secret Origin Revision. The 2009-2010 miniseries Superman. Secret Origin alters Lex's history again. He now grows up in Smallville with his younger sister Lena and abusive, alcoholic father. He meets Clark Kent on a few occasions but is defensive and insulted when he realizes Clark desires a friendship. While in high school, Lex arranges for his parents to die in a car accident, after which he uses the money to travel the world. Action Comics Annual Number 13 in 2011 reveals that after leaving Smallville, Lex spent some time studying under Ra's al Ghul and later spent time working as a weapons maker for Darkseid, learning the technology of Apocalypse. Lex's scientific work and other factors lead him to create a fortune and found LexCorp. Luthor's public relations paints him as a savior to Metropolis, which suffers greatly from crime, and he makes a display of regularly granting good fortune to a random citizen. When Superman appears, Luthor's secret criminal operations are threatened and Luthor is no longer considered a great savior or power in the city, particularly after the hero tells the public that they should look to themselves to be heroes and not look to others to be their saviors. Luthor begins a quest for vengeance, aiding indirectly and directly in the origins of Parasite and Metallo. 83. The Black Ring. After the conclusion of the New Krypton event, Luthor became the lead character in Action Comics and until issue number 900. 84. Written by Paul Cornell, the first storyline, The Black Ring, explores Luthor's new desire to locate the energy of the Black Lantern Corps. 85. Aiding him in this quest is a robot duplicate of Lois Lane. To distract Superman and his closest allies from interrupting him, Luthor releases several Doomsday duplicates. Luthor's quest involves a conversation with Death herself and finally leads him to face a powerful and deadly entity released from the Phantom Zone. Luthor infuses himself with Kryptonian technology and grapples with the creature. The two fuse and Luthor learns it evolved in the Phantom Zone and now seeks to escape, driven mad by sensing the grief and anger of the Zone prisoners. With the creature's power at his command, Luthor draws out Superman to him and attempts to drive the hero mad by forcing him to experience real human emotions, believing the last son of Krypton only fakes humanity in order to be trusted. The ploy fails and Luthor's new abilities reveal that Superman is really Clark Kent, a well-meaning man raised by Earth people who loved him and who still mourns the loss of his beloved human father Jonathan Kent. Luthor is enraged by how this upbringing and emotional nature clashes with his own motivations, unhappy childhood and anger towards his father. It becomes clear that the Phantom Zone entity has the power to create a feeling of peace and bliss throughout the entire universe, at the cost of never allowing him to cause any harm to another being. Superman appeals to Luthor to make this a reality, thus giving the universe a gift and achieving something beyond the Man of Steel's ab.